Hey there campers, welcome to another video. Today we are talking about the news. The news has been wild for a long time now, and over the last few months I've gotten curious as to how it's been impacting people. So last week I posted a question on my Instagram story asking people how they felt like the news in recent months has been impacting their mental health. And I was blown away by the responses I got. So many people chimed in talking about fear, anxiety, and overwhelm that they were experiencing, all from just what's going on with the news. On the surface, it really does seem like scary stuff. But even when things seem really wild, I found that there are a few mental health tips that I've learned over the years that can really be helpful even with something as simple as building a healthier relationship with the news. So let's jump into the skills. Number 1, practice non-judgment. As humans, we love to tell ourselves stories in order to understand the world. And usually it goes something like this. We hear about or see an event, and then we basically run that event through our own lens of bias and everything that has basically made us the person that we are. So things like our upbringing, past traumas, our genetics, and anything else that's impacted us through the years. And when we run that event through that lens, we actually get a distorted story that we tell ourselves. But here's the thing, sometimes we forget that we actually don't have to tell those stories. We don't have to take an event or a situation and label it in order to make sense of it. It can just be a thing. And that is what non-judgment is all about. Now, practicing non-judgment does not mean that you have to go out and agree with a bunch of events or viewpoints that you hear about on the news. But what it does mean is that you can hold space for those and you don't have to react to them. You can just let them be there. Realizing that you don't have to react is a powerful place to be, because when you don't react, you're freeing up space within yourself to stop worrying about whatever it is that's going on and whatever it is that you're seeing. And when you're able to get into that position, you can focus on your actions in the present, and that's the best place that we can be in when we're trying to create a better coexistence. Now on to the next point. See people as people. The moment we dehumanize people, even if we seriously disagree with them, we're in trouble, because dehumanizing people essentially puts us in a position where we're not able to go across the table and collaborate with other individuals, and it shuts down any type of communication that can take place there. Losing this ability to see people as people is a fast track to more polarization, more contention, and more judgment in our communities and in society as a whole. Now on to number 3, set purpose-driven limits. Now this step is all about figuring out the why behind your news consumption. And as a starting point, this is about refraining from doom scrolling yourself into a frenzy that hurts your ability to interact with others in the world in a productive way. As a next step, I would say you want to decide a when and where around your news consumption. Set a limit and stick to it. So back to the why. If you really want to make a big difference in your relationship with the news, dig into why you're consuming it. And when you do this, consider all the different options. Is it to be informed, to be entertained? Do you actually like the feeling of judging and running the news through your internal lens and the feeling of rightness that you get with it? When you find your why around news consumption, compare it to your values and see where it fits in. You might find that you don't actually need to watch the news at all. You might even want to ask yourself, what would be different in my life if I didn't watch the news? Also, if your why behind news consumption is to be informed and you want to continue staying informed, but you've also noticed that the news is having a negative effect on you, think about ways you can get the information that you need to make the decisions you want to make that maybe don't come from news sources. There are likely websites and podcasts and other resources that you can use to make good decisions and still be informed. One rule that I like to keep for myself when it comes to consuming content, whether it's the news, a book, or anything else, is that if I'm not planning on acting on the information that I'm getting, or it just basically isn't adding any value to my life, then I probably don't need to be consuming it. On to my next point, which is probably my favorite. Embrace uncertainty. Embracing uncertainty is exactly what it sounds like. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, so why waste our energy focusing on those nebulous possibilities? When we embrace uncertainty, we're able to free ourselves up to put our focus on the present moment, which is where we're actually able to make that positive contribution in the world. And now for my last point. This last one isn't really a mental health skill, but I think it's still important to think about. And the point is, consider the goals and motivations of these news organizations that you're consuming. I'm not going to dive too far into this one, but this is just a prompt to think about why a news organization is pursuing whatever they're pursuing and how they're getting there. So you might want to ask yourself, what does this news organization want and how do they get it? See what answers come up for you, and then use those answers to realign yourself and improve the relationship that you have with news consumption. That about does it for my tips on news consumption, but I want to wrap up this video with a quote that I read in a book by Donald Miller called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. And this quote comes at the end of the book where he's talking about his experience riding bikes with a bunch of people all the way across America. Here's the quote. "The America we see on television and read about in the newspapers isn't the America we found as we pedaled across the country at 15 miles per hour. We encountered no fear or tension. Instead, in the small towns stitched together by back roads, we found kindness." Now, I firmly believe that while the events that we're seeing in the news really are happening, the America that Donald Miller describes is still very much alive. I believe there is a lot of kindness out there. And I don't think that what we're seeing on the news tells even close to the whole story about America right now. So anyway, go out, be kind, create a better relationship with the news, and put your focus on the present. That's the only place we can really have a positive impact. And that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and we will catch you next time.